fancy three-syllabic words. What do they do? It's going to be sort of like an open session. So for you, those who are curious or those who are already engaged in it, to ask questions back and forth. It's also an opportunity for those who are interested in knowing what Afrilab does to learn more about the organization. As you all know, Afrilab connects a number of organizations, open spaces, incubators and accelerators across the continent. And we serve as a one-stop shop. So you can think about us as the African Union of Incubators and Accelerators. Is that not cool? Is that not cool? Yeah, African unity. So it's the one place where you can come to and say, well, I want to engage with innovators. You don't have to go to 54 countries. You don't need 54 visas. You can just come to Afrilab. We also perform the role of advocates. So we advocate for the model. It's a lot cheaper to invest as governments in hubs and to partner with the private sector doing it than to try to build a new Silicon Valley, for example, from the ground up. You can just put a few $1,000s in a hub in your local government, on your street, and the young people will be engaged. So after school, during weekends, long holidays, we have some young coders here, they will have somewhere to go to. We truly believe hubs are the parks and the stadiums of the 21st century. And we're advocating for that model because it helps our young people engage, first and foremost. And when they engage, what happens when they collaborate? What happens? Who can tell me? When you collaborate, what happens? Among the young people. If you engage and collaborate, what happens? What happens when you engage and collaborate?
There's development.
Exactly, there's development. They innovate. So innovation happens when people collaborate. And so we hope by using this model and encouraging this model on the grassroots all across our countries and continents, our governments, we'll be able to encourage development when people innovate. And when they innovate, some weird little thing called startups actually start developing in our countries. And when those startups develop, they create jobs. Today, the biggest taxi company in the world does not have a single taxi. The name of that taxi company is called Hua. They don't have a single taxi. And they are worth about $30 billion. The biggest hotel chain in the world has no single hotel room. They're called Airbnb, right? And the biggest telephone network in the world has no telephone license. It's called Facebook, WhatsApp. It's the fastest growing telephone network in the world. We all call on Facebook and we all call on WhatsApp. And they don't have a telephone license. So the world is changing around us and we have to change and be in the forefront of this change. And so these weird things called startups are going to be the job creators of the future. And through our work of advocacy on the grassroots level, we help encourage them to develop. Lastly, our hubs do an important work in social impact. Some of these hubs that are here today, I see CC Hub is present here. I see Inspire. I see Innovation Hub. There are a lot of hubs around here today that are attending this session. They are sometimes focused on things like healthcare, agriculture, education, just to make our life a little better. And they perform the role of social impact. So taking these four roles, which I hope you're taking down, students, youth engagement, right? Innovation, right? You're taking down the notes. Youth engagement, innovation, job creation, right? And lastly, social impact. Youth engagement, innovation, job creation, social impact. Those are the four things your hubs do in your community.
journalists, photographers, and filmmakers, some 4,000 individuals across the African continent. And our proposition at the time was to say, you know, why do we have to fly in expensive film production crews from London or from New York when we have local talent that can tell the story better from a local perspective and actually contextualize the events that are happening on the ground? One of our biggest investments at the time was into mobile reporting. We basically took all of the cash that we have, which wasn't very much, and we invested in a bunch of Nokia E61s. We went to Kenya and we worked with local organizations to train up a pan-Kenyan network of reporters to use these phones to basically capture and document what they were experiencing and then to upload it to the africannews.com platform. We knew the work that we were doing was important and lead to the Kenya elections in 2007, but we had no idea the level of violence that would follow the results. Many of our journalists, they actually scrambled to, you know, protect their houses and their families and their lives, and you could really see how difficult it was for them to play their role as journalists at that time, capturing the experience of the country in a post-election crisis. It was an important period of time. You could see that through the democratization of web tools, the increasing number of mobile platforms that were coming online, you know, we were able to get some pretty incredible innovations, one of the most notable being Ushahidi, developed by the team there. And I think is one of the first examples of how technology, citizens are coming together to disrupt entirely new industries. But there were some questions. At that time, you could see that mobile was important. You could see that people were spending money for airtime. You could see that people were scrambling to get access to the internet. But was it just about consumption? Or was there also a movement to be part of the production of new technology, of innovation? This was one of the central questions, and in how far was the African Information Society going to take ownership of the technologies that they were using? Were they going to appropriate solutions and innovations and make them locally relevant? These were some of the questions that I had, and so I actually left African News at that time in 2009, and I registered at the University of Amsterdam and joined a professor, Geert Lovink. We established a research collaboration with the Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, and we moved to Kampala to conduct our research. And maybe unlike any other research that had been done at that time, we went there without a goal. We didn't go there with objectives. We weren't looking to find answers. Applying ethnographic research methods, essentially we were just interested in understanding how people were going online. How were individuals defining themselves as entrepreneurs? How were they navigating the open source community, finding code resources, deposits, downloading those, hacking them, repurposing them, and using all of these knowledge and tools to create new solutions that they were then deploying into the market there in Uganda. And then what were the challenges that they were facing as they were trying to do this? Were there solutions and were there innovations? You know, was there a reception? Was there anyone there who could actually help them bring these innovations to market? It was in, well, maybe two stories that I think actually helped capture some of this transition that we were seeing happen in 2009. One of them is about a plane that was hijacked by a number of terrorists, and they were looking for a place to safely land the flight within a country where they would have protection and support. Idi Amin was the ruler of Uganda at that time, and he had allowed these terrorists to land the flight there at Entebbe airport. It was in one of the evenings that Israeli commandos landed in Entebbe and were able to rescue all of the hostages before anyone in the Ugandan government figured out what was going on. The story is remarkable to me. Why was this possible? It was possible because the national security system and the satellites installed in Entebbe were installed by an Israeli firm. And the controls to that system weren't in Uganda, but they were somewhere in Israel. and the government of Israel and the security teams in Israel were actually able to disable the system, allowing their commandos to come into the country and rescue these hostages before anyone in Uganda could figure out what was happening. The lesson for me in this story is that if you're not actually building and managing your own systems, you're essentially depending on somebody else to manage it for you. That doesn't always work out in the end. Another story that really captured my inspiration and thinking at the time was when a number of students broke into the Makerere University and stole a hard drive with all of the exam scores from the students there. Imagine you're 18 years old, you've just finished your complete education, and there's no record of the classes that you've taken or the scores that you've achieved over so many years of studying. How could that be possible? There has to be an army of individuals that are working to address questions like these. And it was in that journey that I found John Gosier at Afrilabs, one of the first incubation in the country. I met Barbara Barungi there, who is now in the board of Afrilabs. I remember at the time she was working on a project called Question Box. Essentially using a short code, anyone across the country was able to text in their question. This would all come into a central dashboard, and then you had a number of search consultants that would go online looking for the answers. But before texting the answer back to the person who asked the question, they were also registering this. And so they were building up a new body of knowledge that was very specific to the needs and concerns of people in Uganda. In a way, they were almost replacing Google or augmenting Google by making it available to people who didn't have access to a mobile phone or to an internet connection. It was these kinds of solutions that just had so much potential and were so interesting. And Afrilabs not only was trying to prototype things like this, but it was also a space for people who had their own ideas to come together to hack on their new ideas and to get some support from their colleagues, from mentors, introductions to possible clients or to investors. And it wasn't just something that was happening at Afrilabs. This was happening at Software Factory Uganda. It was happening at the Makerere Software Incubation Lab. There were Linux startup groups, there were meetups, there were all kinds of events coming online. On the other side of the continent, you had someone like Valerie Colong connecting with his colleagues, Froissart, Bill Zimmerman, Rebecca Nonchung, to basically establish something very, very similar called Active Spaces, where USAID had been investing in the creation of e-libraries. This team was saying, no, we need to create infrastructure for entrepreneurs. We need a safe space where they can come and share their ideas. We need to afford them access to the infrastructure that they need so that they can work on these important issues and these important problems. And it wasn't very long before all of us were connecting and talking to one another. It was in 2010 that all of us decided to travel to Nairobi, Kenya for the launch of the iHub. I remember when we showed up, there was no paint on the walls, the cables were still being installed, all the chairs were stacked in the corner, but the energy was absolutely electric. We had people from Kenya, from the UK, Uganda, the Netherlands, the US, it just goes on. And it was at that event that a number of us got together and said, let's meet next door at the Nai Lab, which was the next lab coming online in Kenya, to just talk about what was actually happening. You already had 4 or 5 labs that were online and operational in the span of 12 months. And I can tell you then, we were absolutely convinced that these were not going to be the only ones, that there were going to be an army of spaces like this coming online across the continent. And how could it be that we would expect each one of these teams to have to figure out how to do this all on their own? If we're all going through the same process, if we're all seeing the same opportunities and experiencing the same challenges, how can we document that? How can we unlock our lessons learned and make that available to new teams coming up? How can we support them in their battle and their effort to build up these innovation communities across the continent? It's very simple stuff. And at the same time, the work that we're doing is extremely difficult. It's very, very hard. It's the people who wake up in the morning to show up at the space first, to open the door, turn on the lights, make sure the connection is up, that the dishes are done from the day before when all those developers forgot to clean up after themselves. It's from the people who actually sit down with the entrepreneur, number 1,000 entrepreneur, to give them advice and feedback on their pitch deck, to try and help them better think about the proposition that they're developing and how they can strengthen their arguments. It's about working with entrepreneurs and innovators, trying to help them figure out how they can get to the market. How can they learn from their customers? How can they get the feedback that they need so that they can hack and innovate, the features and the changes that are needed to actually make their solution or their innovation relevant. It's also a thankless job. It's hundreds and thousands of hours of helping other people, and how often does somebody turn around and actually thank you for all of your efforts and for all of the time and the commitment that you've made? Well, I'm here on this stage to say thank you, because I see you and I understand what you're doing and I know how important it is. And with that, I think we're here to connect again to one another, to learn about each other's journeys and struggles, and to see how we can, work together and support one another. And at the same time, I hope that you're also here to engage with the team at Afrilabs. I hope you tell them about your community and what you're working on, and that you can also work with Afrilabs to help them understand how, as a Pan-African association, how they can support you. What kind of value can they create in a way that makes your life and your efforts more effective and more meaningful. And it doesn't stop there, because Afrilabs is essentially made up of its members. So beyond just engaging with the team at Afrilabs to help them understand their role within the ecosystem, it's also coming to them with your own suggestions about how you can get involved in however small of a way to try and contribute and to help build this up together as a community. At the end of the day, we're doing this for innovators. We're doing this for the individuals that are crazy enough, when everyone else sees only challenges and problems and risks, for the individuals that are crazy enough to make an argument that they only see an opportunity, a possible path forward. Anything and everything we can do to help those individuals succeed is a step in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the craziest one of all, who decided to start a research project without necessarily having a topic to research on. Ben has been working in the African technology and media space since 2003. He started as part of the business development team at Africa Reports and later served as commercial director at Social Venture Africa Initiative. One more time for Ben White, co-founder of Afrilabs and VC for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome onto the stage Bankole Olurontoba as he gives us a special remark for this morning. Put your hands together once again for Bankole Olurontoba. We'll keep it going till he starts talking. And stop now. Okay.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It was nice to have you guys back here. Day 2 of Afrilab annual gathering. Before I start any further, I'd like us to all give a wonderful round of applause for the Afrilab team. Also for my honorable chair, like I always call him. When Afrilab said they were coming back to Africa, and Michael called and said, Banks, we'd like to come back to Africa. So what can you do? I said, I'd like to host you guys. I was very quick to tell them, come to my hub. I'd like to give you a space to incubate you in Africa before you go into the mainstream market. Now that relationship has been very, very wonderful. It has led to the growth of this wonderful ecosystem. It has led to the connection of this wonderful ecosystem. Because our connections in Africa is what will determine how far we will grow. We all know that popular saying that says, if you want to go fast, you can go alone. If you want to go far, you should go together. Our connections and how far and how more we talk will determine how far we will grow. And which is why we all have to learn, or should have learned, from what Afrilab is doing. Afrilab has decided to help us create one of the biggest ecosystems we can find in the world. And the only way this ecosystem can develop itself or can sustain itself is if we keep talking and keep connecting, if we keep sharing and keep learning. I remember when we wanted to start Inspire Incubator in 2013. First, it started as a program in 2009, which really didn't go down well because nobody understood what it meant to have an incubator. In fact, like I used to joke, which actually is a true story, we had a few people come into the hub and say, "Oh, you say you run an incubator, where are the chickens?" It was that difficult. But when we said we were going to relaunch Inspire Incubator, the first thing I did was, you know what? I think I need to go to Lagos and meet with the guys in CC Hub. Because these guys are the grandfathers of innovation ecosystem in Nigeria. They know how this thing started when they, how this thing grew when they both started. So I said, the first thing I'd like to do when I told my team and my board is that I need to go to Lagos to speak to the guys at CC Hub. Now, it was just a one-day trip, and I believe the talk with Tunji Elesho, which is Femi's co-partner also, was just less than an hour. And that was it. And I begged Tunji and said, you know what, just let me sit in the hub for a while, and let me just have a feel of how the place looks. I just wanted to catch that energy. I needed to learn a little bit how to build our own ecosystem. Now, building the Abuja ecosystem was also very, very tedious. Nobody understood who we were. Nobody understood what we wanted to achieve. A few people in government said, oh, this young boy is doing computer things. What are they even doing? Now, it occurred to us that to build a vibrant ecosystem, we needed to put together stakeholders, the major stakeholders that make up of any ecosystem. At first, they said, oh, it's a triple helix model. Some said, oh, it's a quadruple helix model. But after a while, we realized it's actually a quintuple helix model, which means that we need to have innovators, which are the hubs, right, or the people who will be in the hubs. We need to have government also involved in this. We need to have private sector, which is really, really very critical. We also need to have academia because of their body of knowledge, research, and all that. And then we need to have development organizations. Now, it is key because they're the ones dealing with everyday challenges and trying to solve people's problems. And then they need the technology part for this to grow. Now, this was evident, but who are the first people we need to deal with first? The guys we need to have in the hub, which is all of us. So we had to create something. But again, the guys in Abuja didn't understand us. And the easiest thing we were able to do again was to leverage on technology, Twitter. And the first things people were saying was, oh, you guys are like CC Hub. My team said, boss, why are they connecting us to CC Hub? I said, that's good. Let them connect us to CC Hub. They understand. People know CC Hub better than they know us. So yes, we are like CC Hub, but we are based in Abuja, and our name is Inspire. And so that was how we started the whole Inspire Abuja ecosystem, which again has grown now to have about 5 hubs in Abuja. We've got Inspire, we've got Ventures Platform, which again, Ben was telling me that it's really one of the swankiest hubs you can ever go to. Those guys, they did not mince their bucks to make that hub look cool. Ventures Platform, TD4Pi, who also focuses a lot on hardware, and Tangent Hub, we just launched also a few weeks back on eco-innovation, and several other smaller hubs are just popping up, or little convergences here and there. Now, this little analogy here is to help us see how instrumental it is what Afrilab is doing here today. To help us connect. Connection really, really matters. Talking really, really matters. I remember my discussion with Bernard yesterday from Strathmore University, which was really was quite fascinating. And Bernard said the problem with us here is that we're not talking. People are not sharing information. You meet yourselves at places and then the conversation never continues. Afrilab has set that pace. We don't have to let it die. We have friends and colleagues from different parts of this huge continent with lots of potentials, lots of growth potentials, lots of energy, lots of power. Then we don't have to let that dream die. We need to keep discussing and keep talking and keep connecting. And you know what this will do for us? It will help us share markets. It will help us understand how every other person thinks beyond our little corner. Afrilab has brought us together from different parts of this continent, from our different holes and corners, to learn how somebody else deals and builds and creates. Now, between yesterday and today, I have met brilliant minds who want to do something tangible, who want to create things. I am based in Nigeria. Some of them are based in Ghana. Some are in Kenya. But again, that can't stop the discussion. There is so many wonderful things an email can do. There are many wonderful things WhatsApp can do. And so we have to keep the conversation running. And again, round of applause for Afrilab for starting to kickstart this conversation. And so yesterday what we witnessed was something very, very mind-boggling and very, very mind-challenging. And part of the things I witnessed, which I've also put down here, is that we've witnessed potentials for partnerships. There was something I was discussing with the Hub Afrilab Head of Secretariat, Anna, which, by the way, the Afrilab ladies have done a fantastic job. A round of applause for them, please. They've done great, wonderful things. And so we kept discussing about how hubs can swap, how hubs can connect, which was one of the first things I also discussed with CC Hub when I had the visit. I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if your guys would like to taste the market or test the market in Abuja, or my guys would like to test the Lagos market? There should be a soft landing somewhere. If we can create that to be as easy as this guy, you know, it's easy for them to say, oh, I'm coming to Ghana and I can go to iSpace to do a demo of my new product. That kind of conversation can happen. I had some guy, Antoine, I can't remember his surname, from Rwanda, that runs what do you call it? Like a money transfer remittance company. And then he said, my biggest challenge is dealing with probably total of about 200 or 250 million, and I need just about 30%. But I'm dealing with 5 different kind of governments, the challenges and all that. But when I come to your country, he just strolled into my office. We had no appointment. Well, in my office, the Afrilabs know that my door is always open. You don't need to have an appointment, just stroll in. But just don't waste my time. But then you stroll in. And then he said, but when I come to Nigeria, I see the same target of people that I need and one central bank. Now, how do I learn this economy? I said, it's easy. Just whenever you're ready, just come back. It's as easy as that. Whenever you're ready, you come back. We need to create soft landing platforms for different startups, different ideas that would like to test other markets. And I think with the help of Afrilab, we can do much more than that. And these are the kind of discussions that need to keep going. When you come from Egypt, you come from Morocco, you come from Namibia, Senegal, Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, and you also want to test different kind of markets in other places. If it's hard for you to find these things, send an email to Afrilab. I'm sure Afrilab can sort you out. True or yes, sir? Thank you very much. And also, so I witnessed also one voice in inclusive growth. The moderator yesterday said my wrap-up of how ladies, women, need to build up themselves was very apt, and which is true. Mentorship cannot be undermined. Mentorship cannot be underestimated. They need mentorship. I need mentorship. You need mentorship. So we need to connect with as much people as we can, and so that we can reach out and influence and also share experiences, which they say is the best teacher, to as much people, so they don't go through the same issues and troubles and pitfalls that you went through. Also, I learned the demystification of borders, like my honorable chair said. We've got 54 doors, and I'm sure it's even more than that when you think of several other doors that connects to one country. So we might likely have about 200 doors that we have to deal with. But the leveraging on technology has demystified these doors. The ability to send an email to a colleague in South Africa and said, I like what you're doing in open innovation. On open innovation, that's the innovation hub in Pretoria. Can you share this with me? And they said, yeah, why not? We can help you do this. I mean, I can send an email to someone in Ghana to say, this is what we need to do, and then they can do that for you. These are the kind of things that we witnessed yesterday. And these are the kind of discussions that we also need to keep going. And, well, I've spoken about the share and the need to share ideas and information. So being an ecosystem, we all need to put together every single person that we know. We need to share this information, development sectors, private sectors, governments, hubs. We all need to come together to do and help the work of Afrilabs so that they can do even much more. I would like to say that our hunger for growth and innovation in this country, it is still high. It is still very, 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 very high. And this hunger, we don't have to let it die. What I used to tell people when I teach business model, which I'm also going to teach during the masterclass today, is how hungry are you? I mean, it sounds like a Yoruba word, but it's not really a Nigerian word. Well, it's a mixture of hungry and angry. How hungry are you when you're trying to make a change? That helps you fuel. Or rather, how hungry are you really? Your hunger needs to help you. You never need to let that hunger die. Don't get too comfortable to let that hunger die. And that hunger is still what to keep making us to do more every day, every time, every hour, and every minute here in Africa. So in wrapping up, I'd like to say well done, and thank you to Afrilab, to the Afrilab team, to the whole of Africa, and every other person who have supported this program. Thank you very much, and we hope to see this next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bankole Olu and Tuba. Now, one of the things that often comes up when you talk about technology and hubs and the operations is policy. Now, if the policy is not right, it's very, very difficult for us all to be able to get to the levels that we want to get to. Now, we have a presentation this morning that addresses that particular issue. We're going to be talking about how tech hubs, or how are tech hubs engaging with public policy. We have a lady in our midst who would be doing just that for us. Now, as way of introduction, now, our speaker is passionate about understanding the unfolding impact of ICT adoption and how those impact governance, innovation, entrepreneurship, societal culture, and many others, with keen focus on gender implications. Now, our speaker is currently the Digital Equality Advocacy Manager at Web Foundation, where she manages the foundation's advocacy efforts to promote digital equality in access to and use of the web, with a particular focus on women's rights online work. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker is at the Afrilabs annual gathering, and she'll be sharing insights from ongoing research with results from development with support from MAVC, exploring how tech innovation hubs are impacting governance and public policy co-creation and how they might do so in the future. Please, please, please put your hands together for our next speaker, Nanjira Sambuli. You can do it better for her as she walks up here. Like I said, just do it till she gets onto the stage and grabs the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I know there's been a lot of talking at you, and I really thought this was going to be more of a workshop, so I'll try and engage you in this talk if you'll indulge me. So I just want to get a quick check in the room. Do we have any innovators working from innovation hubs? Anyone building a company or a solution out of an innovation hub? Okay. And we obviously have the innovation hub members. Do we have anyone from any government? Oh, yes, we do. One. How about that? Do you mind shouting out which government, though? Just to know. The US. Yeah, always present. We're trying to get the rest to come through, but thank you for being here. And that's my point, really, and the work that I'm doing. So, by way of background, you've had all the official bio that's been read, but before that, I used to work at the Innovation Hub in Nairobi, Kenya, one of the first in this space. And in the work that I was doing, one of the things that started to emerge down the line was, how do we better make sense about our innovation spaces and how they're impacting how resources are allocated at government level? And so that's how I got really interested in policy and what policy means. It sounds very boring and it's supposed to be men in suits, not a girl in jeans talking about policy. But how I think about policy, and I'm specifically thinking about something I wish somebody had told me when I was in school, is it's not about politicians frustrating our efforts. I would just want to start there. That's the problem we have right now, is policymakers are the people we don't have in the room, and as you've seen, we don't have them in the room. It's difficult to get them here. They come, they give a keynote address, we clap for them, and they leave. But they do not engage and understand our real, our challenges, how they can make the work of government easier to support the work we're doing. There's a very simple definition of policy that I like, and I thought I should just share just in case we are not on the same page about what that means. But a very simple definition says it's policy is a course or principle of action adopted or proposed by a government, a party, a business, or an individual. And when it says public policy, it's about how a government takes those on and they impact the entire population. But if today you were asked what you think policy is, someone just quickly shout out what their understanding of policy is. Or what image comes to mind when you hear the word policy? Guys, I said I want somebody to shout it out. No fear. I'm trying to make this interactive. Highlights? Guidelines. Oh, you got it right. No. I always think men in suits. And sometimes big bellies. But that's besides the point. No, I mean, it's a very... how many have ever gone for any consultation to do with policy? Either in your government, your county or your district is having a consultation. Please put those hands. I just want to see the room. Who's been to a meeting that's been called to engage in policy? All right, okay. So I'm not speaking to people who are not familiar with the process. So the work we've been doing with the Making All Voices Count, it's probably results from for development, is understanding how these innovation hubs are engaging in government policy, co-creation with governments. And that's been an interesting discussion to have with the hubs. And it's really been about trying to understand how do we go beyond just saying, hubs are the spaces that can do this or do this, and trying to understand how much of an impact are they having in the guidelines that help with digital skills training or talent development or making sure that the market is ready to absorb whatever you're going to create. And so we've been exploring how these hubs can impact policy, if they're impacting policy, if not, why not? And how do we get to that pace, or that place for that matter? And so far, what we've done is we've talked to the hubs. That's easy, they're all here. But as you saw, we only have one policymaker who I'm going to run after and understand why she's here, because it's really, really difficult to get these policymakers to show up for discussion. So one thing we're trying to do different with this piece of work is trying to get their perspectives about do they even know what the hell innovation hubs are, what they do? Do they call them all one big name? Like, I'm from Kenya and every hub is called iHub, and it annoys everyone because for them, all hubs are called the iHub. Or when they say they're setting up their own hubs, they call them, we're going to set up our own iHub. And so trying to understand, do they understand why these have come up? Idris yesterday pointed out something very true. Innovation hubs are coming up functionally because mostly universities and other spaces that used to do research and development, places, computer